Well, what do you think, Coach? The camp has come to an end.
Yeah, it's crazy to say in today's times that camp is really only 3 weeks. I remember it was 5 week camp, but it's come to an end because of when school starts Monday for our guys. It's been really good. I'm still a little bit of old school. We got a long way to go to improve and some things, but we've this team is special. The connectivity, the camaraderie, it's different. In today's world where you got 40 new kids that got here in June, that's different. And that was the missing piece last year. Obviously you don't know it until you kind of step back and evaluate. We just weren't connected, and that didn't mean we weren't, friends or there was locker room fights. It was just because they didn't know each other. It made it very difficult to play for each other. We played with each other last year. Kind of like you drop your kids off at the playground and they go play, but they're not out there playing, basketball or playing flag football for their teammate. They're playing with a group of guys they just met. And a little bit that happened last year, and it took us a while to kind of get to the point where we could play for each other. And I think we're there now. We spent a lot of time this off season being very intentional about getting to know each other and letting the kids tell their story. And we did a deal this year where every day we had an offensive player and a defensive player kind of stand up and say why you chose Marshall and who's important in your life. And some of those stories they hit home, and a lot of the guys don't know that they got issues at home, or don't know that they've been through things in their life. So when they get to tell those stories, it kind of draws the connectivity a little bit. So that's good. And then obviously feeling real good that we came out of camp healthy. That's the biggest thing. You look all over the internet now, from the NFL all the way down to college. Guys are losing guys for the season in camp, and that's a big part of what we got to be able to do. We got to be able to stay healthy. And the longer we can stay healthy, the better chance we have.
What's the biggest takeaway from these last few weeks? Where have you seen the most growth out of this team?
Probably in the O line, just because you really got four new guys, five new guys, kind of working together there. Logan is probably the only true cemented starter that returned. Slappy played a little bit, but a lot of those guys are new. It takes time. It takes time to get that connectivity and working together. And then we did a lot of the first couple weeks of camp. We moved them around a lot just to see who could play tackle, who could play guard. The last week and a half, we've kind of let them settle in a little bit, and you start to see a little bit more continuity, which was the plan. But that's probably a group that's grown the biggest, just because you have so many new guys that have to work together. Receivers, we have a lot of new guys, but one guy's playing X, one guy's playing A and Z and Y and all that. But those five got to work together. So that's probably the biggest takeaway moving forward, for us.
Obviously, a couple new faces in that running back room. Have you seen them start to complement each other in practice as well?
Yeah, it's crazy. Jordan Houston's probably the quietest one, but he's probably been the most consistent, which we expected. He's older. You can tell AJ's been in the program, for a few years, because he understands how we do things. Even though the system is new, he understands how to practice, how to finish runs, those type of things. And then Ethan Payne, I told him the other day he should probably go ahead and put his ballot in and run for mayor, because he's just kind of show up and punch the clock. He's everybody gets along with him. He doesn't have bad days. Meaning you look at him every day, he's happy. I think this place means a lot to him. Obviously, him and his brother. I think being from here, last year's the way the season ended. Obviously he wanted to improve on that. He came back with the right mentality. He's kept that throughout camp.
Have you seen the kind of competition you wanted between the quarterbacks in camp?
Yeah, I'll be honest. For the first time since I've been here, we've had true quarterback competition. I've probably told you guys we got it, but a couple days into it, you probably know who the guy was. But we've had legitimate competition, and not just two guys. We've had guys who compete. Jakai Long did some things in the last couple of practices that give you some excitement. But I feel really good about the competition. And since we've been here, we haven't had a quarterback to finish the year. I think that's the reality of college football now, all the way back to the first year. Every year, something happens to that guy, and obviously that guy has a lot of control over the offense. So having competition, true competition, gives you a little bit more confidence going into the year for sure.
Is there a timetable like when you really? I mean, starters are starters, but people float in and out so much. But is there a timetable as a coaching staff where you think you'd like to kind of put it all in place? And that's just not. That's all positions.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me this camp was not necessarily who's going to start. The biggest thing for me is how many guys that we have on the team that can play winning football. And I think sometimes, and I guess you probably laugh, but I've matured as a coach a little bit. I've learned through experience. Sometimes you get so itchy to get to the starters, or the starters got to go out there, or every time you say ones, it's got to be this group. And the reality of it is, the Sun Belt is a league of attrition. And the team that stays the healthiest, the longest, is usually playing really well in the back end. So you gotta find out how many guys do you have on the team that can play winning football. And the way to do that is you gotta move guys around. The way to do that is you gotta mix up the lineups. I bet you if you went in the receiver room right now and you said, hey, who are the ones? Probably 12 guys would put their hands up. And the reality of it is that's how you have to think, because I mean, Rasheen Ali was the starting running back for us, and and he was standing beside me against JMU. So that did us no good. So finding out how many guys we have that can play winning football was a big piece of it. So I feel a lot more comfortable now knowing how many guys we have that can play winning football. I think who goes out there first is going to depend on game plan. We really haven't got into looking at opponents yet. Once we do that, we'll figure out, hey, we're going to start the game in this personnel or that personnel. We want to run this couple of plays in the first series. That will determine probably who runs out there first. I know that sounds like coach talk, but that's really what it is. I've made the mistake the other way, and we got to have our starting 11. We got to put that starting lineup out, and I get it, from a fan perspective. I get it from a media perspective. You want to know who are your top guys, but as the coach, I want to know who can play in Game 8, because those are the games that really swing your season.
It's going to feel good to get at that point where you're prepping for an opponent and not just looking at yourselves.
I'd honestly love another 30 days of camp, just because I enjoy this team so much, and the beauty of camp is it's just us. The students came back this weekend. They had Wild Week. They had the movie in the stadium, and trust me, I love the students. I love the fans, but when it's just us, man, you learn so much about the team. You get to spend so much time with them. I mean, we're here at 5:30. We leave at midnight. We're with these guys. We get to find out how they feel after they did well in practice, how they feel after they're a little banged up, how do they feel after they made 2 or 3 catches in a row, and that's when you get to know your team. You don't really get to do that anymore, because the team I got to know in the spring, a third of them ain't here. You know what I mean? So yeah, we know them, but they're not here. So I'm excited to get ready to play, but I'd love to be able to just actually, if somebody's got a cabin in the hills where we can go and have camp next season, I would love to do that, because I think when you can just lock the gates and it's just the team, just the organization, there's so much growth. You look at, remember the Titans, you look at that movie, and, they went up in camp and they came back down and everybody was like, wow, what happened now? That's what happens. That's what happens in camp. So, but it's close. We got to get ready to go. You guys got a job to do. You guys can't keep writing about that our camp is in, or they'll fire you guys. So we got to give you guys something to write about.
That's the question.
That process from going from camp down to game preparation, how's that changed for you over these last few years? And what do you try to do to kind of continue this momentum?
Yeah, I've been trained in a very strict schedule. This is what you do on this day. A lot of my colleagues and counterparts make the mistake of not being flexible, and I think the one thing that I did this year was a lot more flexible. So we're going to spend the next couple of days kind of refining who we are and letting them get adjusted to their class schedule. When can they meet? When can they watch extra film? When can they get rehab? When do they have study hall? Instead of just diving right into the opponent. I think last year we dove into the opponent so early that it becomes, okay, yeah, we know them. And right, wrong, or indifferent, you don't want to have that mentality going in. Typically you have 72 hours to get ready for a team. So I want to try to keep it like that. So we'll probably won't start until maybe Thursday. As far as getting ready for the next opponent, we'll use this week to allow them to transition into class, transition into study halls. I know it was many moons ago before all you guys went to college, but that first week class, you may change class 3 times. Just the reality of it. I know when I was in college, I didn't go to about the 3rd week, because the class you were in, you were going to get into another section, or you had to be go get a book for that section, and you find out you're in another section. So the first week or so will be, a little bit of transition from a class standpoint. There's more people back on campus, right? So now all of a sudden you're sharing a dorm with some other people. You're gonna have group projects. You're gonna have things to do outside of football. So I want to let them transition into that and get a schedule and a routine before we start talking about it.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.